Hey there, my name is Kelly Dale with Off the Beaded Path. Today is Thursday, October 3rd, 2019. In today's new video, I want to show you how to make a brand new bead embroidered component, which I call the Ginko flower component. Now the reason I'm calling it a component is because it's a small bead embroidered piece that you can make into parts of a necklace. You can do it into earrings, a bracelet, whatever you want. In the video today, I'm going to be showing you specifically a pair of earrings that I've done with them and a fun bracelet that I've done with them. It's a great intro to bead embroidery if you've never done it before. I'm going to show you a few cheat methods that I like to do with this pendant, just to kind of keep everything into place. So to make one component, you are going to need 6 2-hole Ginko beads or Ginko leaf beads. So they're exactly the same kind of bead. It's just the Toho company makes the Ginko leaf bead and another company makes the Ginko bead. Okay, so just be aware of that. You're going to need a 2-hole cabochon bead. You're going to need 2 colors of a size 15 seed bead, and you only need about 1 gram of each of those colors. Now, if you don't have 2 colors, you can use only 1, but I just like to do the 2. You're going to need a piece of Beading Foundation. You are going to need some Ultra Suede, some E6000 glue, and in this video I also use a glue called Zap Gel Glue. So you're going to need some of that, a good sharp pair of scissors or cutters, a size 12 beading needle, and then you're going to need some thread. Only about 1 yard. Now me personally, for my bead embroidery, I like to use the new DuraThread, but you can use 1G, whatever you'd like to use, but I highly suggest the DuraThread. Now, to make the earrings that I show in the video, the only additional things you would need are a pair of ear hooks and some mini tassels. And we sell lots of mini tassels on our website currently. To make the bracelet that I'm going to show in the video, you need some 0.5 millimeter waxed polyester cord, a few size 8 seed beads, and then the optional finding is a button. So let's go ahead and let's get started. For today's project, I'm going to be showing you a new component that I am using the 2-hole Ginko beads or the Ginko leaf beads and a 2-hole cabochon. So you can see here in this one, the purple is the 2-hole cab, and then my Ginkos are here around the edges. I've done a really simple pair of earrings with them, and same thing, you can see the dark brown here, that's the Ginko leaf beads, and I have a 2-hole cab in the center. Now you'll also see I have 2 rows of size 15s, and this has been bead embroidered. So there's these. Then this one here is a really simple one, great for the fall. This one uses the black with the copper splash and the 2-hole cab in the center. And again, you see the 2 rows of 15s along with, this is waxed polyester cord with a size 8 Toho seed beads that are black. And then I've got one more color sample here to show. This one is the new backlit Ginko beads with the 2-hole cab. So again, this one uses wax polyester cord. This one actually uses a cord by the Toho company. It's a polyester cord, and it's really, really nice to use. The thing I like about it is that you can put on a size 11 seed bead here, whereas I had to use a size 8 seed bead on this cord. So I'm going to show you today how to make the component, because once you learn the component, you really can do anything with it. So I'm going to show you the component, and then I'll show you some different ways to use it. So let me move these things because you need to see what you need today. So I'm going to be using quite a few different things. I'm going to be using some E6000 glue as well as some Zap Gel Glue. This is how I will fudge a little bit and sheet a little bit, so you will see that earlier. But I will use these 2 types of glue. I'm going to be using a piece of Beading Foundation and a piece of Ultra Suede that is 1 by 1.5 inches, both pieces. And I have gone ahead and marked the center of my Beading Foundation. Now to mark it, I've used the Easy Washout Cloth Marker. I have a blue one for my white foundation, and then I have a white one. This is a water-soluble marking pencil. So I have it for the black foundation. It comes right off, so you don't have to worry about it leaving any kind of permanent marks. I'm also going to be using my tulip awl, a size 12 needle, and then for the project, my favorite thread to use for this is the DuraThread. It doesn't tangle as easy when I'm doing the bead embroidery, so I really like that, and I'll be using the white today. So you'll see here, I kind of have some beads laid out, and let me kind of get these here so you can see. So I have two different kinds of cabochons here. These cabochons, these 2-hole cabs, are both marketed. Let me see if I can get this in just a little bit here for you. So both of these 2-hole cabs are marketed as being the same size bead, but you can clearly see that this bead is smaller than this bead. These are let me see the brand again, dimpled or wavy beads, and this is just a regular 2-hole cab, and it's called a 2-hole cab again because it has 2 holes. It has a hole going straight in and a hole right next to it going straight in. So it has 2 holes with a flat back. Your Ginko beads or your Ginko leaf beads also have 2 holes. They have holes that run parallel to each other on each side of the bead, and they are both flat. So I found that this bead is not a good 2-hole cab to use for this component. You want a regular 2-hole cab. Now also, I've kind of found, and I'll show you from my samples here, this uses the Ginko leaf bead, and this is the Bondelli finish, and this one has a Bondelli finish. And the Bondelli finishes to me work best for the Ginko piece, but the others will work fine as well. This again was the jet with the copper splash, and this was the backlit, and the backlit didn't work as well, and you'll see what I mean as we start working on the project. So the first thing I do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay out my beads the way I want them to look. And so basically what we want is on each end of the bead, we want a cluster of 3 Ginkos. Okay. And this may seem time consuming, but it is worth it in the long run because this will allow you to see if you're going to have a lot of space or if it's going to work. Okay, so let me get that one pushed in right there. You can see now with this larger 2-hole cab, you can see I have a good bit of space here and I have a good bit of space here. So they don't close completely on the edges like I want them to. So this is why I do not suggest using this type of 2-hole cab because of that space you'll have. Now, if I take the regular 2-hole cab with no like special finishes or anything like that, and I again lay out the beads the way I want them to look, and this is why the tulip awl comes in handy. Handy dandy for this. Okay, so now when I get those into place, now you can see there is very little space here and very little space here. So this is why these particular 2-hole cabs work better than these. So I'm going to go ahead and get my foundation and we'll get started. Okay, so I have my piece of beading foundation, and this is where I'm going to use my Zap Gel Glue. I've put a little drop of glue on the bottom of my 2-hole cab, and I want to put that 2-hole cabochon down right in the center of my beading foundation. And I'm just going to kind of hold this down for just a second and let it dry. The reason that I am doing this, and you do not have to do this, I just like to do it honestly, is because it keeps my bead in place while I'm trying to stitch with it. So I've threaded a needle. You can do about 1/2 yard to 1 yard depending upon what you want to do. And I've put a knot here in the very end of my thread. Now, this is where if you have a thread zapper, your thread zapper will come in handy because you can take and you can get rid of the thread all the way up against that knot. If you don't have a thread zapper, then you can simply take a pair of cutters or scissors and cut it all the way there to the knot. But with my needle threaded with my DuraThread, I am going to come up through the back of the foundation, and I want to come up through the foundation right at a hole here where my 2-hole cabochon is. And I'm going to pull the thread all the way through, and you see my knot on the back has stopped it. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go through the hole that I have, and then I'm going to go through the foundation here on the other side of that hole. And you can see I'm going very close to the bead and right at the hole. And the bead is in place for me, so you see it's not moving because I've used just a tad bit of that Zap Glue. So now I am going to come up through the foundation right at the other hole. Okay, so right at the other hole that I've got, pull the thread all the way through. I'm going to go through the hole of the 2-hole cabochon here, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come right down through the foundation at that hole. So this piece is now in place, tacked to my foundation. Now you will want to lay out your first 3 Ginko leaf beads. Put them where you want them. Make sure they're in place where you want them. And then we're going to use just a little bit of this Zap Gel Glue again. And like I said, I'm going to take it and I'm barely going to put just a little tap of the glue here. Oh, my glue's almost out. Onto the back of the thing. I barely want much glue. Aha, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna drop it on there. Make sure it's in position exactly where I want it to be, because it's a pretty quick instant dry glue. Okay, do the same thing here. Put me a little dab of glue. Drop it into position. Make sure it's where I want it. And then I'm going to do this third one. And again, this just keep these into position for me while I'm trying to stitch these on. Okay, so there they are. I'm going to put my finger on them for just a minute, pressing that glue down into the beading foundation. And now I'm ready to start tacking these 3 pieces to the foundation. Now, as I showed you earlier, your Ginko beads have 2 holes. They run parallel to each other, just like this. And so when we tack, we need to tack both holes. So I'm going to come up through my foundation right at one of the holes of my Ginko. It does not matter which one I start with, completely up to you. You will just want to come up right at that hole. I'm going to go ahead, pull it through. I'm going to take my needle through the hole of the Ginko. Now I'm going to hold that Ginko in place, pull that thread straight, and then go straight down through the foundation right at the hole of that same Ginko. And I'm going to pull it tight. Okay, I'm going to come up through the foundation again. this time I'm going to, since I'm right there at it, I'm going to come through the hole to the inside of my Ginko. I'm tacking this one Ginko at a time. And remember, tack both holes. Once I pull that through, I'm going to go down through the foundation, right at the hole there where my Ginko's at. And I'm going to tack each one of them down just like that. And you can see where I've been rubbing, my blue is already coming off where I marked the centers. You just want to be really, you know, this piece, because I'm using such a small piece of Beading Foundation and I don't want to waste a lot of it, you really have to make sure you get it centered good and right. So I'm going to continue to tack these 3 pieces, and then I'm going to put the other 3 Ginkos on to the other side, and I'm going to tack them the exact same way, and I will be right back with you. Alright, so I have all 6 of my Ginkos tacked into place, and I am ready to continue working. Now we want to do a row of 15s to outline the piece before we actually go any further. So you can see I've taken my needle and I've come up here in the foundation right next to one of my Ginko beads. For this, honestly, I like to use Toho seed beads just because they tend to lay better against each other rather than the Miyukis for this, but you can use whatever you'd like. So I'm threading on 2 beads, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go down through the foundation right after the second bead that I added. And I'm going to pull that through so it looks like that. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come up through the foundation right here near that first bead that I added. And I'm going to pull that through. Now I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go through the 2 beads that I just added. Oh, I had a cramp in my finger. Ow. Okay. So you can see how nicely those sit up against my piece. Now I'm going to pick up 2 more 15s. Well, I say that. There we go. 2 15s. I'm going to let them drop all the way down, and you can see here I'm coming around the shape of my Ginko bead. So now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go down through the foundation right next to that second Ginko that I just added. Okay, I'm going to count back 3 beads. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come up through the foundation basically between beads 1 and beads 2. And then I'm going to go through 3 beads. Going through them like this will help straighten them out if you go through them a little too closely or you get them put on a little too closely. Okay, so that looks real good. Now, I want to continue to follow the shape of my Ginko, but I have just a little space here, so I'm going to thread on 115 and I'm going to drop it all the way down, and when I move it into position you can see here that that will fill in that little space. So that's what I want to do. So I'm just going to take my needle, I'm going to pull this back so you can see. I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go right there in between the crevice of those 2 Ginkos, so that way when I pull the thread it puts that bead right into the crevice where we want it, and it looks really nice around the Ginko. Now I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come up through the foundation right there next to that last bead that I just added, and now this time I'm going to be working around this Ginko. So again, I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15s and I'm going to let those fall. And I'm going to make sure that I pull these down all the way down here, so that way, and this is why I like to have my my tulip So that way I can kind of push these down to where I want them and get them in position. And then I can take my needle and go down through the foundation right after the second bead that we add. And I will go ahead and pull that through. Now, I'm going to go ahead and come up through the foundation again right there at the first bead that I added. And then I'm going to go through the 2 beads that I just added. And I am so sorry about that sound. That is my my little weenie dog walking around. I'm having to film this at my home today, and he's walking around on my hardwood floors. Okay, so now I thread on 2, wrap it around there, go down through the down through the foundation right after the second bead, pull that through, and then I count back 3. I come up through the foundation right before that third bead there, and then I go through the 3 beads. So I'm going to continue adding my 15s just like this until I've gone all the way around the outer diameter of my piece. Okay, so you can see I've gotten all the way around and I have a little space left right here. So basically I check to see how many beads I can get in there. So it looks like it's going to take me 2 beads. So I'll take the 2 beads, and this time instead of going down through the foundation, I will actually go ahead and go through this first bead that I threaded on. So that way now it completes the layer around the beadwork. Now to me this does a couple of things, and it's important because the 15s help hide the holes a little bit and hide your thread where they are coming out of the holes. In a real world, had I been doing this not for a video, I would have done this on black, so that way you would not have seen the space right through here so much. So you know, keep that in mind too as you pick out your foundation. Now I've stitched through the foundation and I need to tie the thread off. So I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go under the thread right here near where my thread is coming out of the foundation. I'm going to leave myself a little loop, then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through the loop and pull that thread to make a little half hitch knot. And I'm going to go ahead and do this again. Now it only takes a couple of knots, that's all you need. You want to make those good knots, not the bad knots. Alright. Now you want to take a pair of scissors, and we're going to cut around the outline here of our flower components. But you want to be careful too not to cut any of your threads here on the back. So what I do is I just kind of go straight around the piece, what I can do with my scissors. And that does a pretty good job, but these have corners that we need to get into. So I've actually found that these thread cutters work really well to do this with, and doing this doesn't dull my cutters. So I kind of get in there to these spaces that I won't cut out, and I go ahead and I trim them. So you can see now how much better that looks just getting into that space. These threaders these cutters are expensive, but they are so worth the money because they cut the DuraThread really fantastically. DuraThread, 1G, all that kind of good stuff, but they do this too, and they don't ruin the cutters, so that makes me a happy girl. Okay, so I've got it cut out around the piece here. And let me get these little pieces off my mat so that doesn't drive me crazy. Now, I'm going to take my E6000 glue. And when you do the E6000 glue, you only want to do it kind of here in the inside of your piece. I don't put it around the edges, because if you put it around the edges, what might happen is you might actually glue the edges together and you'll have a hard time getting your needle through. So I'm going to press that down a little bit. I don't really have to worry about it drying so much right now. I just press it down to make sure I've got good adhesion, and then I'm gonna go ahead and again I'm gonna cut it out. Now, have this been like a bracelet or something, you know, big, I would have not immediately started cutting, but with it just being a little component and I'm gonna zip the sides up together, it's completely fine. So now I'm gonna come back in here with the cutters and I'm gonna cut it to match my foundation. I want it exactly with that foundation. Okay, so you can see on the back how I'm getting that shape. So I'm going to go ahead and finish trimming this and we'll go to the next step. Okay, so I have my piece cut out. I've got my needle threaded and it's left with the length that I had. And I've gone ahead and I've put a knot in the very end of the thread. Now you can start wherever you want to. I normally like to start on one end. And I'm just going to separate the foundation from the Ultra Suede. So I'm going to pull it back like this. And I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come through the foundation, just the foundation, okay? So I can pull this through and look what gets hidden down in between my layers now. So we want to put an edging around our piece, and it's almost like we're going to do brick stitch. So this is my favorite way to do it. I've got 2 15s onto my needle, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come through both layers, and I want my needle to come out right next to where the thread is here that I had gone through. Okay, and I'm going to pull that through, and you want to go up through the second bead that you added and pull it. And this is what it'll look like. Okay, now from here on out, I'm just going to pick up one bead. I'm going to go through both foundation and Ultra Suede, and I'm coming up right next there to the bead that I had just finished, and then I'm going to go through that bead. And you'll notice I'm doing a different color 15 here. I like to do 2 colors of 15 so that it really helps to give some dimension to your piece. If you only have one color or you only want to use one color, that's fine as well. You know, it's completely up to you. Remember, this is not saying you have to do this. This is saying you can do this, and it's a suggestion, not a requirement. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue on adding the one bead and doing the brick stitch method around my whole piece until I get back to right here. So once you've gone all the way around, this is what your piece will look like. Now, like I said, had I been making one of these for myself or for a sample, I would have used black so you wouldn't see that, and I would have used black thread so you wouldn't see my thread either. But in this case, it's going to help because I'm here back at the top, and you can see that this is the last bead I added, and this is the first bead that I added. Now, when you get back to the top, make sure not to overcrowd this. Like, there's no way I could get another bead in here. So just kind of pay attention to that part. Now, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come down through the first bead that I added. And then I'm going to come up through the last bead that I added. So what's going to happen now is that connects the first and last bead together, and it is a seamless join all the way around my piece. Now at this point you kind of have to decide what you're going to use it with, what you're going to make it. So like here I've made it into an earring. If I did not want this to dangle, I could just leave the bottom loop off and have just a top loop. If you want to make it into, say, like a bracelet, it doesn't have to be macrame. This is just simple macrame here. If you did not want to macrame, you could just, you know, put your loops here on each side to do any kind of bracelet that you wanted. Completely up to you. But you kind of have to think about what you want to make with it at this point. So I want to show you how to make a loop, so no matter what you decide to make, you'll know how to put your loops on. So you kind of have to look at the top of your piece, and I like to do this kind of from behind so I can see. I know that my center, very center, is right here, right there at the top. So I have to see what beads I have that are centered here at the top of my piece. And sometimes this is 1 or 2 beads, sometimes this is 3 or 4. And it looks like I have 3 beads that are centered on the top. I have this one, I have this one, and this one. So the last bead, the first bead, and the second bead. So depending on what you're gonna do, if you want to make this into an earring, I would do probably just like 6 or 8 15s. And then you will take your needle and you're going to go through the bead that will center your loop. Whoops. So for mine, once I pull that thread, I don't really think I can get better centered than that. That's almost perfect. So now what I'll do is I will kind of just stick the needle through the foundation to the front, and then I will come up through the same 15 again, and then I will go through the beads that I added for my loop. And once I get those added again, you can go through the foundation to the back, and then up through your bead again. And then at this point, you will be ready to do some little half hitch knots. So you can see my thread here along the outer edge. And so right here between the bead I'm coming out of and the very next bead, you'll see there is a bridge of thread. Take your needle under that thread, pull it, and leave a little bit of a loop, and then put your needle through the loop and pull the thread. That'll make you a little half hitch knot. Now I'm going to go down through a bead and then up through a bead here, and I'm going to put another little half hitch knot. The good thing is, it doesn't take many knots to finish this off, so that's the nice thing about it. Okay, so now when I come down through that next bead, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch through, if I can get it through there, stitch through some of the foundation or the ultra suede. I'm going to kind of pull it, and then I'm going to cut it so that now you can't see where I cut that thread. You can see here I have my loop here at the top. So if I want this to be an earring per se, I need a loop down here at the bottom if I want to hang something. So I still have my needle threaded, and I'm going to come and I'm going to find the center down here at the bottom. Well, I don't know if I can get it close enough without it getting blurry, but the center here at the bottom is right in between 2 beads. It's right in between these 2 beads. And so I can either have a 2 bead loop, but I'd rather have a 4 bead loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to come up through this 4th bead here. Yep. I'm going to leave myself enough of a tail that I can stitch through and get rid of it. And I'm going to pick up my same amount of beads that I did here on this end. So 6, 8, whatever. And then I'm going to come through whichever bead it will be that will center my loop on this end. And I'm going to pull that thread. So now, once I pull it, I have a loop on both ends. Now I will simply, if you want to, you can go through and you can reinforce it again and then tie these threads off. If you want to make it into a bracelet, you'll need to make your loops a little bigger. So I would say like 8 to 10 beads if you're going to do some macrame, so that allows you to be able to get your thread inside of those loops easily. So you can see there's another example of my loops. And then this one was a thicker cord, so you can really see how much I needed there. So you'll get rid of these threads, and then you'll have your component complete, and you'll be ready to make it into an earring or bracelet or whatever you want to. Okay, so I've gone ahead and did another sample with a dark background so that you could see, you know, kind of what it would look like with the dark background. And I've already gone ahead and put one side on, so I want to show you how to actually do this part of the bracelet. Now this is just basic macrame while I'm adding beads to it. So like I showed earlier, I have my 2 loops here on each end, and let me see if I can zoom this out a little bit for you. So I'm using the mini macrame board just because it is real easy to use when you are going to do some macrame, because it's got everything ready there for you. So before I pin it to the board and do anything with it, I'm going to be using some 0.5 millimeter waxed polyester cord. Now you can use macrame cord like hemp. You can use pretty much any kind of cord that, you know, I showed you earlier that Toho makes. Any of it will work. This is just, I really like this because it feels nice with my product that I've chosen. So I've taken about 9 inches or 18 inches and folded it in half. And I am going to come up through the loops here on my little component. And I'm going to keep those ends together, and I'm going to pull the thread and leave myself just a little small loop here. And then I'm going to take my 2 pieces of cord and I'm going to pass them through that loop. So it's going to kind of wrap itself around the loop that you've made. Now this is where I'll go ahead and tack my board. Now I'm going to use like a T-pin type thing. You can use a thumbtack or a push pin if you have that. Whatever will work. So I'm going to push that in there so it will hold my stuff as I work. Now the board actually has these little grooves in it, so I can take and put my cording down inside of that groove, and I'll leave it a little loose, but this will hold it for me as I work, and I don't have to worry about it kind of coming undone. I'll then take some more of my cord, and I'm going to use about a yard. A yard will be more than sufficient to do this much here. You'll actually have some left over. And I'm trying to think, I'll find out and I'll let you know before the end of the video how long the cord is, because I can't remember like how much you actually get. But I'm going to take my new piece of cord and I'm going to go under my 2 cords. The middle cords are what I'm going to call a filler cord, because they're going to fill the inside. So I'm going to take this and then I'm going to get both the ends together and make sure I have everything centered and I'm good to go. So I start this one out a little bit differently. Instead of actually starting it with a macrame knot, I go ahead and I just do a very basic, you know, tie the thread onto it. Just a really basic knot here. And I'm going to pull it all the way up to where it meets. And let me go ahead here and pull this a little tighter. So I pulled it up to where it will meet where I just did my loop there. So you can see that. Okay. Now I'm going to do 2 basic macrame knots, a left knot and a right knot. So I'm going to start on my left side here, and I'm going to take this left cord and I'm going to lay it over the 2 center filler cords. So it's going to make a little arch here. Then I'm going to take my right hand cord. I'm going to lay it over this left cord here, and then I'm going to go under the center and through the loop here that I have. So when I pull it, it's going to make my first little knot. Now, as you can see, it made a little hump or lump, I call it, here on this right hand side. So that lets me know now I need to do a right knot. So I will take this right hand cord and I'm going to make it loop around almost just like this. Okay. Then I'm going to take this left cord and I'm going to lay it over my right cord, then under the center and through my loop here that I have. And so when I pull this one and I pull it tight, you'll see that now I have a hump here on this left side. So I do 1 complete set of knots. So let me see if you can see here. 1 complete set of knots. Then I'm ready to add beads. So this is the part that can, like, honestly drive you crazy because it's going to take you a while to do. I'm going to use a size 8 seed bead. So here's the deal. If you can't get your size 8 seed bead to go on your cording well, I do a couple of things. One thing is I trim my cording at an angle, okay? And normally it'll slide right on with no problem. If I continue to have problems with it, you know, being able to thread my bead onto my cord, what I'll sometimes do is I will take and I will put some thread magic on the end of it or something to that effect, just so it will stay stiff for me and I will be able to use it. Okay, so I have a bead on each side. My little hump here is on the left hand side, so that lets me know I have to do a left hand knot. So I'm gonna loop my left cord around just like this. The right hand cord goes over this left cord, under my filler cords here in the center, and then I'm gonna pull it through this loop here that I've made. And when you do that, you see it now pulls my beads nice and tight together. And I don't know if you can see it good or not, but it put my little hump right there. So now I have to make a right hand knot. So each time you add beads, you're going to do a knot with the beads and then 1 more knot to lock it into place. So the right knot is around and over my filler, so I'm going to the left. My left hand cord lays over the right, under my filler cords here in the center, and then through this loop here. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to pull it through and tie my knot nice and tight. So now I'm ready to put beads on again. So I'm going to slide, maybe slide my bead on. There we go. And honestly, like I said, to me, this is what takes so long, is threading your bead on. And I'm sure someone brilliant, more brilliant than I am, will figure out a way how to put all their beads on and keep going, but that would just drive me crazy, I think. So I'm doing a left knot, so the left cord comes around over my fillers, so I'm going to the right here. My right hand cord will lay over the left. It will go under my fillers and then through my loop that I've got here on the left. And pull that tight. Okay, so now I need to do a right hand knot. So this right hand cord is gonna make a loop over my fillers. The left hand cord here is going to lay over the right, under the fillers, and through my loop here that I have. And that's gonna make another knot. So I'm gonna go over this one more time, just to reiterate it. Okay, so I'm going to put a bead on each side. Now, if you're using a thinner cord, you can use a smaller size bead, and that will work well. If you use a thicker cord, you can just use a bigger bead. You'll just have to test to see what will work best for your piece. So I've got my beads on. The left cord makes a loop and it goes over the fillers. The right cord goes over and under my fillers here and through my little loop. Pull that tight. So now the right hand cord here makes my loop and goes over my fillers. The left hand cord lays over my right, under my fillers, and through my loop here. So the great thing about doing it on the macrame board is I can actually keep up with the length that I want for this side of my bracelet. So let me go ahead and get my length here, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to get rid of these two threads here. Okay, so real quick, I wanted to show you kind of like a, like a tip for you. I've started to make my next knot, and you can see here that this knot here has gotten loose. So before I tighten this up, make sure that you tighten this knot up before you pull this one up. If you don't, your knot is going to be very loose and open, and you're going to get kind of frustrated with it. So make sure if you get a knot that kind of opens up a little bit, that you go ahead and tighten that up before you tighten the next knot. Alright, so once you get the length of the macrame done for this side of the bracelet, you want to use either a big eye needle, or this is actually like an upholstery needle almost, that has a very, very large eye to it that I can thread this 0.5 millimeter cord into. Now I'm going to flip my piece over, so I am working on the back. I'm leaving my loop here a little bit loose for this last one, and I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to run it up under some of the cords here on the back side. Now it may be really tight here if you've pulled your knot super tight, so I use a pair of flat nose pliers to kind of pull that piece of cording up. Now I'll go ahead and take the needle off this end, thread the needle onto this one, and then I'm going to do the same thing for this side. I'm going to take and I'm going to run the cord up under some of my wraps here, and then I'm going to pull tight through there. So now I'm done with that needle. Now at this point, I'm going to double check, just to make sure I still have my same length here that I want. And then I'm going to use just a very, very, very small amount of this Zap Gel Glue. And I'm going to put some glue right where they're coming out, and then here on my ends. And then I'm going to let that dry. So as you can see, my cords have dried, and the glue has dried, and I have cut the cords here real close, so that way you can't see really where I stopped on the piece. Now I'm going to actually show you how to put a button on this one in case you do not want to do like a sliding type knot. And so I'm going to show you the sliding knot on this one, but I also wanted you to see that this is what your piece will look like if you use beads, and this is without beads. So this is straight macrame, no beads added. So there's two options here. My cord is thin enough that I could get both pieces of my cord through. But if I did that, I'd have to have a pretty good size knot here on this side. So I'm actually just going to take one of these cords out and just leave the one cord in it. And now, dependent upon how big you want your piece to be, I am going to go ahead and come out just a little ways, and I'm going to make a knot. Okay, so I think I'm going to bring it out to about right there. If you need it smaller, go in more. It's completely up to you and what you like and what you want to do. So now I'm going to put one more little different type knot in there. So now if I want to, I could take and I could actually add some little seed beads to this. It's completely up to you if you want to add any embellishments to it. If you don't want to add any to this side, then you can add some to this side. So for this side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out and I'm going to start a knot. Now before I pull this knot tight, I want to check and see if my button will fit through the loop. And it will, but I need to make my loop a little bit smaller here. So let me test it now. There we go. That will be a good size loop for my button. So I'm going to go ahead and put that knot in there, and then I'm going to take and put another knot and pull it tight. So at this point, if I want to, this is where I can also take and put some little seed bead embellishments. So let me go ahead, I'm going to throw a few on here. Well, here we go. I'll take and I'll put 3 little seed beads. If you want to put a charm or anything like that on it, you could do that. Completely up to you. I'm going to stick with 2. Okay. So then, I'm just going to make a little knot, and depending upon how far you want those little embellishments to be is how far you'll want to come out on this. So now you can take and you can trim that, and I like to leave a little bit of a piece of my cord there after the knot. You don't have to. It's just completely up to you and what you like and what you want to do with yours. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a few pieces here, and then here you go. So I'm going to make a knot, and then I'm going to make another knot that will go right over that one, and then again trim that off. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim these pieces here so that now come on, it's being ornery today. There we go. Now I have a button clasp onto my piece, and I don't have to worry about a sliding knot or anything like that. So you can see it's just a really simple basic bracelet. So let me get my cord together and show you how to do the sliding knot onto this piece. Okay, so the sliding knot is fairly easy. You're going to take your ends of your cord here for your bracelet and lay them out side by side just like this. So I've got 2 pieces here and 2 pieces here. Now I have a new piece of my waxed polyester cord here. It looks like it's about, hang on and I'll measure it real quick for you, 12, so it's about 16 inches, okay? And I'm gonna take and put it under all 4 cords. So all 4 of my green cords have now become my filler cords. Okay, and to me, this is where it gets kind of hard. You almost have to be able to do it one-handed, just because of until you get your first little knot put in here. Let me get it added. Okay, there we go. That'll keep all of my cords together now while I try to work. So you're going to do this exactly like you did with your regular macrame. So the left cord will lay over my filler cords like this. The right cord will go over the left, under the fillers, and then through my loop here. And then pull that. Okay, so my little hump now is on this side. So I'll take the right hand cord, loop it over the fillers. The left goes over the right, under the fillers, and through my little loop. And we're going to continue this. Left loops over the fillers, right goes over, under, and through the loop. And you continue this until you get the length of the slider knot that you want. So I could stop here if I wanted to, but I normally like to make my slider knots about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So it's completely up to you and how much you want to add. And two, I guess it kind of goes, this will determine, you know, if you made your sides a little too small, you might actually need to go ahead and make this part longer, so then that way it'll help make up some length for your bracelet. Okay, so I think this is good for the length of my slider. Now I'm going to do exactly like I did with the basic macrame. I'm going to get my big needle back out wherever, let me see. Okay, so get the big needle back out. Thread the needle with one side of your cording here. There we go. And again, we're going to run it up under the cords here on the back. And this one, be very careful not to get actually stitched through any of your green, like my filler cords, because if you do, it's going to rip this thing apart. So you want to be careful and make sure you don't go under any or through any of your filler cords. Okay, so I've got that one, and then I'm going to put this one on. The other thing I have to be careful of when I put my glue on these is to make sure I don't saturate it so much that it's going to glue into my filler cords. So I'm going to stitch under here. There we go. All right. So now I'll take and I'll put just a little bit of my glue, and if you want to use your E6000 glue that takes a little bit longer to dry, you can do that. You can see I barely put any on right here, and then I'm going to also put them where they had came out right here. And again, be careful that you don't saturate it, because if you do, it's going to glue those filler cords in, and then you are going to be so upset. Okay, so without finishing this yet, you can see that I have my little sliding knot. So I kind of have to figure out how big I need it to get my hands in there. You want to kind of even everything up. And then this is where you can pretty much decide, like, hey, yes, I want to put, you know, I'll give it a lot of length, or I don't. So this is going to be, I think, where I'm going to leave it right here. So I'm going to go ahead. This is going to be the longest it will be. So at this point, I can put beads on here if I want to. Or, you know, you don't have to. It's completely up to you. You can slide a charm on and then make a knot. basically kind of, you know, just the sky's the limit. So let me find a few beads that I can put on here, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I couldn't find anything I just really loved with this one. So I'm just going to put my 2 cords together, and I'm going to put a knot in those 2 cords. And then I'm going to trim it. I can also hit it with a lighter to kind of get rid of these pieces here if I want to. And then same thing on this end. I'm going to go ahead and put a knot on that end. And I had given this time to dry, so I went ahead and I trimmed the ends of my pink cords there as well. So at this point, my bracelet would technically be complete. But I want to show you real quick, let me get a lighter, and I want to show you if you want to kind of hit these and make these smaller and kind of glue everything together, I want to show you how to do that. Okay, so if you are young, do not do this without your parents or guardian there to watch you. Okay, so I'm going to get my lighter, and I'm going to hit just the very tip there of the piece, and you can see that it melted the ends of my pieces, and it kind of melts everything together there on the end. So I went ahead and I've done this end as well, so that way those ends are glued basically, and they're never going to come apart. So this shows you now how to make a beautiful Ginko flower bead embroidered component. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make the new Ginko flower component. We won't have kits for this project on our website, but we do sell all the materials needed. We also sell the written pattern. You can purchase it as an instant download on our website, and the instant download will show you how I did the earrings, and it will explain the macrame techniques that I also used in this video, and that can be found at offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. Now, since there are no kits for this particular project, if you watch this video on the day it comes out, which is October 3rd, 2019, then you're in luck, because tomorrow on our website, which is October the 4th, 2019, it is free shipping Friday on our website. So that means any order you place on the website that is over $10 and it ships within the United States, you will get free shipping. Now you have to use the coupon code FREE, F-R-E-E, to get that free shipping on Friday, October the 4th, 2019. But it will allow you to be able to get any supplies that you need and get that free shipping. So thank you so much for watching, and make sure to come back next Thursday because I've got another brand new video that's going to come out. Bye!